After 72 years in the Football League, they have been relegated. The side that brought you Kevin Keegan and Ray Clements and had Jermaine Beckford and Billy Sharp. And in terms of management, they had people like Graham Alexander in charge. But they have been emphatically relegated. They'll play in the National League.
We will be back, hopefully without Swan.
If there isn't a change of ownership at Scunthorpe United between now and the end of the season, and those timescales may be optimistic, we will no longer, will cease to exist.
Scunthorpe United, a club on the decline. A club that once were a championship club, an underdog in English football, find themselves in the fifth tier of English football in 2023. A club that's been known as a role model and a well-run club for many, many years, but now a club that find themselves in financial crisis. So I caught up with a section of supporters to ask them when this downward spiral initially started.
As often is the case with spirals, there's no one definitive moment. I would probably have to pinpoint above all else January 2017. Going into New Year's Eve, we were top of League One, really pushing for promotion to the Championship alongside Sheffield United and Bolton. And unfortunately, that transfer window was a bit of a disaster. We desperately needed a centre-half. We didn't sign one. And also, it later came out in later years that basically the club imploded off the field. The owner, Peter Swan, who we're still protesting about to this day, had basically said to the players, right, that's it. No new contracts for anybody until we know where we are at the end of the season.
The start of the free fall and the Barron's period pretty much started at the end of that season when he came out and said, no longer investing in the club. The club's going to have to live within its means.
Yeah.
Which, okay. So, we carried on. We knew it wasn't going to be, we was maybe going to not be as successful is not the word. The expectations went down from then on, which was understandable, but it has literally been a free fall ever since.
Has the impact on your enjoyment of football changed since the downward spiral of Scunthorpe United?
Yes, massively so. I think 5 years ago, if you told Scunthorpe fans, look, you'd be happy to be in the National League North if you've just still got a club, we'd have all probably reacted in shock, but that's the situation we are in now.
What's the effect been like on you?
The effect from the club on myself is, I think I can count on everybody else in this town. It's catastrophic. 125 years worth of Football League status and a club that's looking like going down the drain.
Would you ever consider boycotting games?
I've missed one league home game since 2018. It's not for me, the boycott, in all honesty. It's for some people. Some people's opinions are, let's all boycott the games. Swan, it will inevitably possibly help Swan get out of the club sooner. For me, it's been part and parcel of my life for about 30 years now, going to the football weekend. I am a season ticket holder. And when I purchased that season ticket at the start of the season, it's in hope that things will get better. But that hasn't been the case for, 4 or 5 years now, unfortunately. It's just gotten worse and gotten worse. I mean, in hindsight, would me staying away and others help things? Some people say it would.
I'll always support the club, but I will not put money into his pocket again.
Mhm. Has it had an effect on you supporting Scunthorpe for the last couple of seasons? Had your matchday experience potentially lowered?
Well, when I first got my season ticket, I would sometimes turn up on my seat and someone was sat on it, and that particular stand was packed. Now I get there and half the seats are empty, so I know that's maybe not quite the answer to your question. In other words, attendances are they've gone down over the years. People have just had enough. They said, we're just sick of this. We just can't really pay and to watch the football anymore. But I mean, another aspect of the club, I like to go get myself a drink at half time. There's no longer the facility to do that. There was like a small little bar we could go to in the stand that I'm in. That's been shut down. And the refreshment stall is pretty much, you're very limited to what you can buy.
How would you sum up the current state of the club?
I don't often quote the Daily Mail, but there was a piece in it this morning that called it the biggest basket case in the English pyramid. And I think that is a description which is hard to beat. If there was just one thing wrong with Scunthorpe United right now, you could suggest at fixing it. But it's everything. It's on the pitch, it's off the pitch. It's the future of the ground. It's the future of the land. It's the owner. It's unfortunately some of the senior staff. Yeah, it's a complete and unmitigated disaster, and has been for probably close to 5 years now.
12th of January 2023, Scunthorpe United were issued with a winding up petition for an unpaid tax bill. So I caught up with Ollie Turner for more information on the matter.
A winding up petition is pretty serious. It's normally filed by a company, this case HMRC, as often is the case with football clubs, to recover outstanding money. And it's basically a last resort for them almost. They would have sent letters and what have you and tried to have negotiated this, but HMRC have decided to file this winding up petition to try and recover this outstanding money. Now, it's an alleged unpaid tax bill, although the details of it haven't been publicised in terms of the amount or the time frame that the club have been given to repay it. But it is pretty serious, although, as I'm sure you well know by now, Southend United in the same division have been issued with a number of winding up petitions over the past few months and years. And, they're still operating as a football club, although, we've seen the problems that have been there in recent months and years. So it is serious, but it doesn't mean that the club can't pay off that outstanding money or try and reach a settlement with HMRC before it reaches court.
I know this is quite an extreme thing to say, but could you potentially say that this may be the start of the end for Scunthorpe United, potentially, when we look at what could come next, administration, etc.? Is that something that could potentially happen?
Not necessarily. We don't really know where the club is at financially at this point in time due to Peter Swan hasn't spoken publicly on the record, perhaps since his statement about his own legal proceedings against a particular bookmaker. And prior to that, when a deal was agreed in principle with a local group to buy the club back in December, which since hasn't come to fruition. It's a possibility, but at this point in time, it doesn't feel like the club is at the end of the road just yet. It will be interesting when we come towards the end of the month whether it's able to pay the wages. But the club has it's going to play 6 games this month. It's got the game against your side, Halifax Town, next week on TV. So that will help put money into the coffers. But they've obviously brought in a group as well to help try and sell the club. And they've stressed that they're not there to place it into administration at this point in time.
There's a winding up petition from HMRC for a fee, pay as you earn. I believe it's 120 grand. For me, if I stay away and a lot more other people stay away, that situation is just going to be even worse.
Is it significant warning signs for you?
Yes, that's exactly what I would say. It's a significant warning sign. Due to the legal system in this country being very slow, it would probably take months to come to fruition. But it's a massive red flag. And it's a sign that the club is under extreme financial distress, unfortunately. We've had difficulties in previous months of paying wages of players and staff. despite the fact that actually the attendances for us this season have actually been pretty healthy. I think they've been the seventh highest in the National League, which, given the absolute dross we've been served up for the last 5 years, is pays testament to the fact that the town cares, the supporters care. We're not prepared to let the club go without a fight.
During Scunthorpe United's league fixture against Woking at Glanford Park, a section of Scunthorpe supporters invaded the pitch to protest against current owner Peter Swan. What's your opinions on the pitch invasions? Are you someone who's all for it, or do you think it's unnecessary? And it is, because to be honest, the crucial facts are it is costing the club even more money.
Mm-hmm. It's going to cost a fine, but there was a lot of publicity out there, so that people are really starting to realise the gravity of the situation now. That we are in a desperate predicament. And it's made in various news outlets, so that's a good thing in the sense that Swanee will see that and says, "Oh God, right, this, I need to kind of move on." We don't know. Some people think that it's just he's not bothered. I can totally understand the frustrations of the fans. The fact, bless them, fair play to them. They're not just going to sit there and just let this go on any longer. Something needs to be done.
Should have started sooner. Some don't agree with it at all. Some, this isn't me saying this, think it's just a bunch of youngsters that are wanting to, cause a fight. What's your take on these pitch invasions?
So, just on the last comment, the protest was extremely peaceful. There was no police intervention. Even the critics of the protest I've not seen anything that says that it was violent. Look, there is criticism because of the fact that some of the protesters are young, and sometimes because they dress in ways that old people don't understand. Well, quite frankly, I couldn't care. At least they're trying to do something. And, this is a really serious situation about Scunthorpe United right now. We've already shown that, if something doesn't change with the club, we're not going to be here next season. So compared with that, a fine for a pitch invasion is completely insignificant. It's beyond irrelevant. And the massive amounts of press coverage that we've had over the last 24 to 48 hours, shining a light on just how awful the situation is at the club, shows that the protest worked.
What were your opinions on the pitch invasions?
I wanted something to be said so that it got media attention.
Mm-hmm.
And the club can't sink any lower than it has done. So even if we get a fine or points deduction, we're bottom of what was the conference, the Vanarama National League. Yes, it looks like we're probably going to get relegated again.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I completely support the protest wholeheartedly. Let's not beat about the bush. Encroaching on a football pitch during a game is a crime. But there has to be a massive understanding of the fact that this is in the public interest. It's a peaceful protest. They're not invading the pitch because we want a new striker or we want chips in the away end. It's because we want our club to be here. We want a 123-year-old community institution to not die at the hands of one incompetent, greedy, vainglorious, egotistical owner. And that's the situation that we're in right now.
What are the repercussions of the recent pitch invasions?
We're waiting to find out at the moment. I think the club have put out a statement over the weekend following the pitch invasion and have said repercussions could be possible in terms of financial sanctions from the FA or the National League, possibly a points deduction as well. Certainly, entering onto the pitch is a criminal offence. So maybe those people who did run onto the pitch during that 2-0 defeat to Woking could face criminal charges. But I think we've got to do some digging over the next couple of days to find out the ramifications of it. But the club have highlighted that there could be a financial sanction or a points deduction, possibly, depending on how seriously the FA and the National League look upon it.
Now, I've noticed that you have spoke to the manager, the management team at the moment. What is their reaction to the current situation of what's going on, and how are they dealing with it?
I think Michael Nelson's dealt with it pretty well, to be honest. I think he realises that it's out of his control. I think he also realises, due to the nature of the situation at the moment, where there isn't really much comment from Peter Swan, who's trying to sell the club, and though other people at the club at the moment, due to everything that's going on, he is at the moment, unfortunately for him, and it's no fault on him, but he is the one at times who's having to give information to the supporters and the media about what's going on, and I have a bit of sympathy for that. He's an interim manager, and unfortunately he's having to deal with a lot of that, and really all he wants to do is concentrate on training Monday to Friday and then the game on a Saturday. But I think he's dealt well with it. It seems like he's just taking an approach as if it's water off a duck's back for him. He's trying as much as he can to concentrate on the playing side of things. I think he has produced an upturn in performances, certainly from the team. They look a lot more committed to the cause. I think he's brought energy into the midfield, bringing back Finlay Shrimpton from a recent loan spell at Gainsborough Trinity has added a bit of a bite to that midfield and has allowed the more attacking players such as Cameron Wilson, Alfie Beeston and Jacob Butterfield to do their thing a lot more further up the pitch.
With all the issues off the field at the moment, the issues on the field are just as bad. Scunthorpe United currently sit bottom of the National League with only 19 points after 27 games.
The football that we've been served up over the last, now 4.5 seasons, we've finished 23rd in League One, 20th in League Two, 22nd in League Two, 24th in League Two, and now we are 24th in the National League. Our last away win on a Saturday in front of supporters was in 2019. It was literally the last decade. We've won one away game full stop it's nearly 2 years now. And even that was away at Oldham, so that barely counts. Look, it's incredibly difficult. I actually think that the support of the players this season has been really good. We're lacking quality. We can see that. We will have a low budget this season. I suspect it's bottom six. And unfortunately, that's reflected. Our single senior goalkeeper turned 18 last week. We have unfortunately lost loanee Rob Actor. He's gone back to Blackpool. Our defender, ex-Barrow and ex-Rochdale, Co Sinclair, he was out of contract. So he's left the club. We've sold top goal scorer Joe Nuttall to relegation rivals Oldham because we need the money to pay the bills. And we haven't replaced any of those players because we're under an embargo from the National League, which means we can't sign anybody. Well, the situation at Scunthorpe has got so bad that actually, in the end, that the National League have taken a little bit of pity on us, in that we've been allowed to offer striker Keelan Lavery a contract extension because his current contract with the club is up in 6 days' time.
I mean, it's January now. It's looking like we're going to go down again, but there's still time. There's still about 20 games where if we somehow manage to draft in the personnel, we could stay up. But whilst this is ongoing, there is this chance for embargo. We're stumped. The team we've got at the moment is not good enough, apart from a small number of players that we've got. The key one, Lavery, he's out of contract towards the end of the month, and that would be a devastating loss if he goes.
Yeah, his current deal expires on Sunday, so potentially this game away at Solihull Moors could be his last for the club. We were told last week, and I was quite taken aback from it by Michael Nelson, that they have offered him an extension to his current contract. They've been allowed to do so by the National League on a case-by-case basis, which I must admit I was quite surprised about. I think the majority of people following the club expected Keelan to leave come this weekend because we didn't think the club were in a position to be able to offer new deals. But the National League have given them the green light to do so, and they've said they'll allow the club to offer new deals on a case-by-case basis moving forward. So that sort of throws up into the air whether the club is under a transfer embargo or not. I've asked the club, and on the record, they haven't commented about it. The National League haven't given me any confirmation of that either.
It's fair to say Scunthorpe United supporters are hoping for a miracle and a new owner. Although there has been potential new investment at the club, nothing seems to be leading to anything. Ethan Moe gave us his monologue on what needs to change and the current circumstances of Scunthorpe United.
Since the local consortium with Simon Elliott and Ian Sharp has revealed they are no longer interested in buying the club, me and many other fans believe this is the end, as they were our only saviours. I understand they put in a few reasonable offers, all rejected by Swan, who seems like he does not want to sell the club at all, contradicting what he is saying. Now it seems like we are definitely going into administration, with Alan Hardy being the only interested potential buyer, and he almost drove Notts County into the ground. There is now a very real possibility in a Phoenix club being made by Ian and Simon. The other problem, however, is that Swan sold our ground, Glanford Park, to his own company, Cool Silk, and he completely owns the ground. This means if we do go into administration and get lucky enough to be bought by someone who is not Alan Hardy, we would either have to rent the ground from Swan on a week-to-week basis, or more likely we would have to ground share at a nearby non-league club, such as Gainsborough, Winterton, Brigg, or even Bottisford. I am sure you have heard about or seen pictures of the protest and pitch invasion last Saturday at home against Woking, where we lost 2-0. This has gained attention from football fans across the country, and I'm aware Derby County fans are planning to come up to Glanford Park to help and join in with our fight against Swan on the 28th against Bromley. I'm going to finish with this. The situation at Scunthorpe United is dire, and a club that has gone from fighting to get into the Championship in 2017 could no longer exist next week, or be in the National League North. I've been a passionate Scunny fan all my life, and I'm a current season ticket holder. It saddens me that our club has been destroyed by one man. This should not be allowed to happen again. We have no ground, no hope, no finance, and possibly soon no Scunthorpe United.
In today's local news, Scunthorpe United, two consortiums have pulled out of buying the club because our stubborn owner will not sell.
Mm-hmm.
The only person that we've got interested is somebody that has near enough killed two clubs in the past himself. The club is on its knees. And the only hope that we've got is Mr. Alan Hardy that nearly took Nottingham County out of business. But is our best hope at the minute to keep this club alive. And I firmly believe that people should be given another chance. And if it means that our club can survive for now, I hope that he can come in and rescue us.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically Scunthorpe's last hope.
If there isn't a change of ownership at Scunthorpe United between now and the end of the season, and those timescales may be optimistic, we will no longer, we'll cease to exist. We'll be starting AFC Scunthorpe. And there are examples of how that's maybe not the end of the world in the long term. Halifax, Wimbledon, good clubs have come back, but you're in for a 10-year slog. So, I think that the supporters are very concerned, and rightly so.
How would you describe Swan as a person?
Particularly good opinion. I will watch what I say, but it's pretty much public knowledge. He's got gambling issues. For me, he's laissez with money. I was kind of privy to what he was worth many years ago, and apparently right now it's a fraction of that. He calls himself a businessman. That don't particularly sound a pretty astute businessman to me. Just his recklessness, not just with the club but outside of it. You see his these gambling issues that's come to light, and he's pretty much gambled our club.
He's been a poor businessman. and a poor owner of Scunthorpe United. He came in with big words and big promises about all of the things that we were going to achieve together. I'm also, albeit a very small one, but I'm also a shareholder of Scunthorpe United, and I was there at the meeting when he was voted through to become the club's chairman and the majority shareholder by supporters. I even voted for him. That was a mistake, and I think the fact that in the same week that he was telling bookmakers that the club was up for sale, he was also then telling supporters that he was really committed to the club and we were going to achieve all of these amazing things together. I think that shows you the true character of the man, and it's not nice viewing.
And this is what I have a serious issue with. He's gambled our club. He's never there on match days. He doesn't care anymore. He says he'll walk, he'll leave, but he's still there. I mean, there's people are kind of suggesting that he wants the club to pretty much disappear, so he can sell the land and extract as much money back as he can. There's supposedly a consortium coming in. That, was announced, the takeover was agreed on the 1st of December. For whatever reason, that's not materialised. I understand Swan's moving the goalposts. We don't know. I mean, this is the other thing that's really frustrating. We're not hearing enough from the club.
Yeah.
We have fan-elected directors. We have, various personnel that for many years have been pretty vocal and come forward and said, look, this is happening, this is not happening. Right now, we're all kind of speculating on a daily basis what exactly is going on because we're not told anything. And for me, no news is bad news.
How would you describe Peter Swan?
When he first took over this club, I would have described him as an astute businessman. But a lot of people watching this will have seen the media outlets. He's basically gambled his money away and he's gambled our club away.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want to use the expletives on this podcast as to what I think about him and his puppets behind the scene.
How crucial are the upcoming weeks going to be for Scunthorpe United?
Massive. I think they always are as we edge closer and closer towards the end of a particular month, just because, again, wages will need to be paid. There will obviously be further payments in terms of tax and VAT and what have you, and they've already got this winding up petition being filed against them. I think the company that have been brought in to help with the sale of the club, it's a group called Begbie's Trainer. They're a corporate restructuring specialist. People may recognise the name. I think the last time they were sort of involved in a high-profile football club were when Wigan were back in administration a couple of years ago. I think they've highlighted the fact that this winding up petition highlights, I think the quote that a spokesperson gave us was the urgency for any potential purchaser when attempting to buy the club. It's felt like a big period, felt like an important time since maybe the end of November, but given recent events with that winding up petition, it feels like these next 2 weeks could be crucial in where the club goes moving forward.
There's also been rumours about Alan Hardy, who obviously was an ex-Notts County owner. Obviously, he got relegated with Notts County's team. A lot of Notts County fans have a lot of strong opinions against him. What's your opinion on that, and how likely is it that a sale can happen as soon as possible?
Alan Hardy's an interesting one. I know he had the overwhelming reception to the news that he's leading a consortium that's interested in buying the club has been largely negative from what I've seen. But I think we also spoke to a member of the Notts County Supporters Association who did say, he did save the club at the time from potential liquidation, and he did save them from relegation at the time. Unfortunately, it went quite badly wrong for him. They were also served a winding up petition towards the end of his stewardship there, and they were ultimately relegated from the EFL as well. I think you'd like to hope that he's learnt lessons from his time there. I think obviously his use of social media was a big, perhaps deemed by county supporters to be part of the problem, and he, of course, he said posted accidentally that inappropriate photo on Twitter, which then led a few hours later to the club announcing that it was up for sale. I think at this point, supporters are getting to the stage where they think we just need anyone to save our club at the moment. They're that worried. So if it's Alan Hardy, it's Alan Hardy. If it's someone else, it's someone else. I think the stumbling block is the sale of the ground. I think there was a big report by The Athletic last week who said they claim that Peter Swan, the owner, is willing to sell the club for £1. But the ground and the land surrounding it, he's put a particular price on it that maybe hasn't been met thus far. So I think that at the moment is sort of going to be the key to a deal getting over the line.
If you had one message to Peter Swan, what would it be?
Get out of our club. Sell up. You are not wanted here.
Strong message, and I think a lot of Scunthorpe United supporters would totally agree.
I think every single one.
Yeah,
we had the protest on the centre circle to try and send a message out to get our point across to the national media.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Swan, if he's watching or any of his colleagues are, there's one message. Do the decent thing, get out of our club, and get out of Scunthorpe.
Do you see any light over the dark, gloomy clouds ahead?
Look, if there is a takeover, if we do get a buyer, particularly, there's been a quite high-profile local consortium which have been linked with taking over the club. If that does happen, there's still a good support base here, and we've shown, and we are showing prospective owners that there is a really loyal core support base who are prepared to fight for their football club. We've seen other clubs bounce back from very, very difficult situations. So, there's always hope for the future. But as I say, unless there is a takeover of Scunthorpe United, this club will cease to exist, and everything pales into insignificance compared with that. If we can get a takeover, and especially if we can get it sold to good people, although frankly right about now I think I'd take Darth Vader over Peter Swan, then there is hope there, but it's that silver lining is pretty well hidden at the minute. There's some really thick clouds on the horizon that we're going to have to deal with first.
Do you see any light over the dark, gloomy clouds ahead?
I'm hopeful. I check every hour for updates. When I'm at work, I do a little. Yes, I do think something's in the works and something will materialise. I have hope. Without hope, there's no point. Might as well just all give up and just knock the ground down without hope. Because that's all we've got this moment in time. So the answer is yes. There is hope there.
If you could say anything to Swan in a conversation now, what would you be saying to him?
I'd say to him, you come to the club and you gambled with the club. You've lost. We're in an absolute dire predicament. The fans' livelihoods are at stake. Please bear that in mind for any decision that you make this month or whenever. But your time's up. Please leave us.
Sell. There's no point beating about the bush. He has over the years indisputably invested a really significant amount of money into Scunthorpe United. If you include the loans and his shares, since he took over nearly 10 years ago now, it's to the tune of £20 million. But just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's good. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, even when the signs and the football itself, the on-pitch product was good, the off-field stuff was a disaster. We didn't mend the roof when the sun was shining, and now when it's chucking it down, well, the house is flooded. You've tried, Peter. Give up, because if you don't, the club will no longer cease to exist, and you will be forever known as the man who killed Scunthorpe United. And all of those promises that you made when you took over at Scunthorpe, that you were going to leave the club in a better situation than in which you found it, that's gone now. That's just not happening. But it can still be here when you leave. So accept defeat, sell, and sell now.